What's up, everybody, and welcome to eCommerce Masters. We're so excited to be here today. We've got an amazing guest, an old friend of mine, and we're going to talk some real e-commerce shop today. Super excited to welcome Jason Nyhus, who is GM of Shopware for North America, to the building today. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man, I'm excited to finally be on the pod. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited for you to be here. Your travel schedule, you're nonstop with the travel. So really excited to have you here today. So how are things? How are you?
Oh, man, things are great. I'm fired up. It's November here in Minneapolis, which probably explains why I'm traveling every week. Go to somewhere warmer as often as possible. But no, things are great. We had an amazing Q2, an amazing Q3, and lining up for what will be a record-setting Q4. So really, not a lot to complain about in my world.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how did you get into the commerce industry? What was your path to kind of get where you are today at Shopware?
Yeah, so I've been in e-commerce for 25 years, 24 years. And when I started, I had a full head of hair, which shows you the level of stress this industry can deliver to you. But I actually got into the industry because I was having lunch at the Mall of America here in Minnesota, and the CEO of a company called Digital River was presenting on CNBC about the information superhighway, and anything that will go digital, can go digital, will. I ended up getting an interview with that company called Digital River and got a job a couple of days later. And it really kind of got me real excited about the industry of e-commerce and what it takes for merchants to go direct, what it takes for B2B merchants to embrace digital. And I kind of got 25 years of experience working with brands to make these things come to life. So kind of a long storied experience in e-commerce.
That's great. I didn't start losing my hair until I started working on Magento, but that's a whole conversation for another day. So
sounds about right.
So for those that don't know, tell us a little bit about what Shopware is. Like, what is Shopware?
Yeah, well, so again, when I was working at Digital River, I was there 20 years, and I got a call from a recruiter, and they said, we have this leadership position at Shopware. And I said the same thing as you probably said, who the hell is Shopware, and why does the world need another commerce platform? If you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant of, let's say, 2020, you won't see Shopware's name on it, but you will see 18 commerce platforms. And so my question is, why a 19th? And I had to answer that question for myself. And it really, the way I did is I analyzed who their customer base was. We have 50,000 active clients all over the world. We're the 7th largest commerce platform by GMV process. We're open source, so we're able to do things differently. We're private, which is a huge advantage in this market. And we don't play by the same rules as some of the other platforms with like vendor lock-ins and other things. So I was really excited to learn more about Shopware. And now as I sit here, I think the market actually is coming to appreciate that there's another player who's really disrupting the way e-commerce is done.
Yeah, it's as I probably had similar thoughts, right? When you came to me, I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what are we doing here, yeah. Right? And over time, I've really come to respect and appreciate what you're building on top of, right? Because what Shopware came to America with, and all of the plugins and apps and tools and things, plus a real significant push product wise. It's just been a very cool evolution for me to watch and take a look at. What's your ideal merchant look like?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing that e-commerce companies the platform people like myself have to realize is that Shopify is going to eat up the low complexity part of the market. And in fact, they're probably the best box ever invented for e-commerce. And frankly, we send merchants over to them every day. because they're so simple and because they give you economic and technical scale beyond what you could earn on your own. So our ICP is not SMB. On the high end of the universe, these are the 1% club. These are companies like Commerce Tools, which are these are amazing companies, but these guys serve the 1% who want everything bespoke, and they need, they want a box of Legos and they want to assemble every one of those Legos the way that they want, exactly the way. So high amounts of control, but at the same time, high amounts of expense and long times to manage. That's not us either. We sit in the middle. We love complexity, and we love when potentially these merchants are underserved. They don't fit in the box that is the Shopify. They don't have the timelines, the teams, and the budget for the fully 100% composable buy the box of Legos. Our merchants have to have complexity. And how does complexity show up? Complexity shows up with number of physical retail stores. Maybe you're selling products that are regulated, that take a lot of compliance requirements around who can buy the products where. We love B2B. Naturally, B2B done right has complexity. It's not just making your B2B site look like your B2B site look like a B2C one. That is not really serving B2B. So that's our ideal merchant, the mid-market who has complexity and wants to differentiate based on experience, based on different workflows, those sorts of things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's the ability to customize and create and build are very, very significant. One of the things that also, it's like the pendulum swings back and forth in this industry, right? It always does. And so one of the things that got me really intrigued, I think it was early 2023, 37 Signals, the folks that make Basecamp, the project management tool, posted this entire thought leadership piece about how they were going to move off of the cloud. Everybody started on bare metal, then moved to cloud hosting, and then they were going to move back to their own bare metal. And the cost savings to that was going to be somewhere in the $7 to $10 million a year for them in order to maintain and operate this off cloud infrastructure. And so, from a technical standpoint, I'm probably using the wrong words there, but the thing that also really intrigued me about your software is the fact that you can kind of take it anywhere, right? I know you don't really consider it on premise per se, or maybe you do, but the fact that you can kind of bring your own host for this, or bring your own metal for it if you want to, was also super intriguing as we've started to see the world creep up cost wise, overall.
I love the example around the pendulum because I think that's exactly right. We overreact or underreact to almost everything. And, multi-tenant SaaS cloud environments are amazing. And we have one as well that we offer to our customers. But frankly, the power of the multi-tenancy is that in any industry, they've made a series of choices for you. And if you like those choices, you should buy from them. But as you move on the other side of the continuum, you might be in a regulated industry. You might be you have to deal with medical records. You might, there's a whole bunch of use cases where being on a shared cloud environment just simply don't work for your business model. And so kind of use case number one is there a model? And frankly, we have two. One is a bring your own cloud where you can work with Shopware inside of any of the hyperscalers or your own infrastructure. And the middle one is a PaaS environment, platform as a service, which basically means you're single tenant and someone's going to manage it on your behalf, and you can have DevOps and others interact with the software. What's really powerful about those other two models is it breaks away from this all-in-one rev-share model and allows you to kind of pay based on what you use. And for merchants who have a certain size and scale, there's real economic benefits of that approach. So kind of scenario one, you're in an industry that shared cloud doesn't work. Scenario two, you have enough size and scale and internal capabilities to really support a bring your own cloud model. And frankly, for most of these advanced merchants, kind of as you're talking about, Ethan, they already have a team who manages other systems inside of Azure or AWS or other places. And to manage an e-com platform the same way is not a heavy lift.
Right.
So
Right.
I do think this fit in. Our product is designed to kind of fit in to the way that people want to already run their business. And that's one of the key tenets of Shopware is around flexibility.
Well, I feel like there's probably some breakpoints at that, right? Like if you're $1 million a year retailer or merchant, you
Yeah,
couldn't afford all the features and functionality that you get from, a straight cloud-based, like where it's bundled all in one
totally.
tool. But there has to be a breakpoint there, I feel like in terms of, is it 10 million? Is it 20 million? What are you kind of seeing in the marketplace with that?
Yeah, it's somewhere in that range. Let's talk about Shopify as the 800-pound gorilla in our space. And again, world class company doing world class things. So I'm not belittling or knocking them in any way, shape, or form. But I always tell merchants that if you're a $1 million merchant, like you just said, and you use Shopify, well, you get the economic benefit of being a $25 million merchant with the payment types and the connectivity and the choices they made and the scalability and the performance. You get enormous benefits from being part of Shopify's ecosystem. It's at the point where you start to become, say, a $25 million merchant. And at that point, anything above that, you're actually sponsoring the economic benefit for the smaller ones, meaning you're overpaying for payments, you're overpaying for infrastructure, you're probably overpaying across other dimensions by using that platform. So it's probably in the $20-25 million range, Ethan, where you can start to really reap meaningful benefits of change by kind of taking and controlling all these aspects yourself. Anything smaller, it's a tougher math. It's a tougher equation to make work.
Yeah, yeah. I know you've been speaking a lot about like those types of opportunities for merchants and just about things that you feel kind of work against, like both for and against merchants, in
Yep.
terms of once they hit that scale. Do you have some other thoughts around that you want to share?
Yeah, maybe bring up that slide if you don't mind that I shared that has a typo where I spelled the word R instead of our, or opposite of that. Well, but this is kind of a list,
We all
and
do
when
it.
I
We all do
reflect
it.
exactly, this just shows you that I created this for this conversation that I had that typo in there. Um, when I reflect on the messages that are resonating when I speak to merchants, it's really these. A B2C merchant who's growing like crazy, they look at a model where they're paying a rev share and they're like, hey, this is just a tax on our growth. If there is no platform economics of growth, it's really a tax. And so one of the ways we kind of combat that is, we're able to do a fixed license fee that renews annually. And so the cost of commerce and you can capitalize that expense as opposed to running it as an OPEX kind of tax on your growth. So that's really number one. I think there's a bit of a revolt against the rev share in the merchant community, and we're excited to kind of help fan the flames in that regard.
Stir the pot there.
Stir the pot. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so we're having a lot of success there. Especially when merchants expect to double or triple over the next 3 to 5 years. If you're on a rev share, the cost of commerce is going to also double or triple. Well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And so we're really excited to fan those flames. The second big thing or trend that's happening in our world is this concept of vendor lock-ins. Now, again, I'm picking on Shopify because they're public, but last I checked, it was like 72% of the revenue that Shopify makes is actually on payments. And so this is a little bit like McDonald's not being a burger company. They're actually a real estate company.
Right.
And the same thing is true here with Shopify. So it's in their best interest to drive a vendor lock-in where they give away effectively the commerce platform, but they force you to use their payment engine. And if you don't want to use that, you have to pay an additional 20 basis points to bring your own. Well, that is another tax that a merchant pays for their flexibility. Anything to react on that one, Ethan, before I move to the next?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. I mean, there is, and every app that uses payments in some ways, can lock you in on that. I know I pay extra points on my QuickBooks merchant account than I could get if I went through my bank or some other source for that. So that's part of it as well, right? So there's a lot of pass through that happens with the payments piece.
Yes,
It's also
a
very
much
powerful,
more.
right? Like counterpoint to it, it can be,
Yeah.
that the Shop Pay wallet has become very, very easy for, D2C merchants, right? Myself included, like just log in and, go up and pay for something and I'm done.
100%. I use it too. I'm a little bit of a hypocrite on this point, but the truth is none of these things are all bad or all good. It all depends on the context at which you're trying to be a merchant. Because you're
Yeah.
right. Like if you're a $1 million merchant and payments just comes through a click of a button that I now have this great payment infrastructure that has high acceptance rate, lots of payment methods, that replicating that as a $1 million merchant is nearly impossible. So the value that they deliver far exceeds how much they charge. And it's only until you get to a breaking point where that becomes untrue. So I totally agree with you, Ethan.
Yeah, I think wallets are very powerful. For digital wallets are extremely powerful for folks to have, especially if you're a direct-to-consumer brand, maybe some kind of Instagrammable product, right? That Instagram and TikTok and social media are your primary marketing sources for it, and you're selling two, three, four, $5 million a year. That can be very powerful to help you with your conversion rate and your velocity of sales and growth, all of those things. But there is a point where maybe if you're a B2B merchant where that doesn't matter, or there's
Yep.
there's a lot of folks out there where that, or you're not taking payments, like it doesn't matter to the end user, and especially if you're doing kind of terms or POs or other types of payments, ACH, et cetera.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. The cool part about this conversation is there are certain decisions that you make as a merchant of a certain size and complexity. And as you get bigger or your business changes shape, some of those decisions no longer are as attractive or might make as much sense. And so I think that's the nuance of the e-commerce industry, which makes it so interesting and why, frankly, merchants should rely heavily on a company like Groove to help navigate all these choices because businesses are dynamic just by nature.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The next thing I would probably call out is the online terms and conditions, and this one's really interesting because it doesn't affect every merchant. Um, if you're in the regulated industries, so think about government, think healthcare, think hunting, think CBD, think alcohol, any of those categories, they're all highly, highly regulated. And the challenge with highly regulated industries is you could get shut down at any time. And this is a real fear that people who operate in those industries live with every day. And doing businesses in the United States, we're highly fragmented on the rules of each county or city or state or federal. And you have to be able to kind of take advantage of some of those changes in the industry. The online terms and conditions basically is a very, very platform centric. Um, it helps platforms scale, but at the same time, it gives them this veto power. The veto power meaning they can change their mind on serving any industry anytime. And so your business with very little notice could be left without a platform. And so this online terms and conditions is a really big deal because it's not only just the platform's choice. If you're locked into their payment engine and their payment engine changes their mind on a vertical, you're kind of screwed. And it goes one level deeper if the hosting provider suddenly changes their mind on what is acceptable, you're screwed. And so I see people in these regulated industries treading very lightly as to the decisions they make because there are follow on implications of the platform, the payment engine, and the hosting provider. If they're all tightly coupled, that's really bad news for a regulated industry company. The second thing I'll add around online terms and conditions, I mean, I'm assuming, Ethan, given you have a 7-year-old, you were an early adopter in Disney Plus, probably an early adopter in Netflix, all of these things. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Well, you signed up for online terms and conditions when you signed up for those services. Go back and look how much you were paying before Netflix and Disney Plus had leverage on you. And they knew that if you canceled, you'd have to explain to your kid why you did that. The price you pay is probably 3 times the original price you pay. And the online terms and conditions give platforms the ability to change their price at any time.
Well, yeah, and that example is very far-reaching as well. I mean, because recently in the news there was an issue where somebody had an accident at one of the Disney parks, and because they were a Disney Plus subscriber, I believe they had to go to arbitration and Disney pushed back and said, "Hey, you can't sue us because you're a Disney Plus member. We have to go to arbitration." I believe was was the next step for that, right? Like, and that was like, well, how does being a subscriber of Disney Plus affects me slipping and falling at the park, kind of thing.
Yeah, you signed on to the online terms and conditions, so you have given away your rights, given away your
Which
rights
none
to
of
be
us ever
served, given
read,
away your
by the
rights to
way.
price.
None of us ever read all those terms and conditions,
Nobody
right?
reads them.
It's like the tags on the mattress, we never read it.
Well, that'd be a good use case for AI. Just like, hey, summarize what I just signed up for. What rights did I give away? Um, the next example of things that I've seen is that one size fits all, and this is exactly your point around the pendulum. Um, Listen, there are deals that Shopware is in that we probably can't serve the merchant perfectly, and that's true on the two. I'll say it differently. Every single deal that we are in, and there are many, Shopify is also in those conversations. And frankly, one of us is in the wrong room. And this one size fits all approach to commerce is really, really, really useful for roughly, 50, 60% of the market, but it's not 100. And we believe in merchant flexibility. We believe in having a lot of choices that you can make. We aren't making them all for you. And that's one of the ways we're really standing out. Again, it comes back to vendor lock-ins, what cloud you use, how you pay for it. These are all scenarios where one size fits all doesn't fit the classic shopware merchant. And that's kind of where we're going. You see this,
Yeah,
I bet, every day, Ethan.
every day, every day, every day, and we do a lot of B2B commerce implementations, and so people come to us in all shapes and forms. Some people have zero knowledge of like what's needed with this. Some people have an expectation of maybe looking at some of the 1% platforms with this that are very, very expensive. Those folks all bill time and materials hourly. I mean, you can easily go from a $250,000 project to a finalization of $1 million worth of billing by the time you get into one of those projects. I've seen it happen. Actually, it happened to me when I was on the client side. But I'm really pushing people to say, is there a platform that can kind of get you 85% or 80% of what you need, and then we can customize on top of that and stay out of that 1%, because that those are just 18-month long projects. They're these massive kind of death march projects with very, very expensive. And so we believe that we want to get you to market. Can we get you to market in 6 to 8 months, right? For a B2B implementation, faster for a direct to consumer product, but for a B2B implementation with potentially a CRM, right? An ERP system. Maybe there's some type of CPQ, app or tool within the organization, and maybe a PIM, right? A product information management tool. Those projects take, those are, maybe 6 to 12 months is probably a more appropriate window, just based upon the amount of people that need to kind of get together and get going in the same direction for that to work. But we see that all the time, like how do we, there's no silver bullet, but how do we get you as close to the pin as possible and then customize or create on top of that to get you to that last mile?
I love that. I couldn't agree more on this. Give me 85% of what I need out of the box, and I'll take standard practices. give me, 10 to 15% that I can configure and change and make it a little bit more my use case, and then give me 5% or something like this, where I have complete customization on top to fit the business practices. So it's never just this all-in-one, I'll just buy everything off the shelf, and it's never the everything is an individual Lego. It's somewhere in the middle, which is kind of where we all live, this kind of practical middle. And that's exactly right, Ethan. Those are the merchants that we've had the most success with. Yep.
Great.
The last two things I would hit on, and this is really interesting. I didn't come to appreciate this point until fairly recently, and this is around e-com platforms outsource innovation. If you put yourself in the shoes of these other platform providers, these are technologies that originated 15, 18 years ago. Okay. And some of the original lines of code that were originally built for these products are still in the core product. And that's, if you think about running your business on an iPhone 1, how much different it would be. And frankly, that's very similar to the market that we're in. And so why do e-commerce platforms outsource innovation? It's because most commerce platforms are spending most of their R&D basically refactoring their existing product and making it adaptable to things like mobile commerce, social commerce, marketplaces, headless, new APIs, externalizing services. And so the R&D of these organizations is not about delivering new features or new capabilities. It's about slightly improving what already exists. Okay. And yes, everybody's really good at marketing and they call them new features, but they're not new features. They're simply slightly better. And so that's what I mean by outsourcing innovation to the App Store. The good news for a lot of the commerce platforms is they have an open or at least an ecosystem that you can have apps that can be built in that allow you to extend these products. Mm-hmm. So at Shopware, what we thought was really missing in the market was new utility, new capabilities that are not yet available that you can buy and as part of the core product, not as add-ons and not as apps. And so we put a big emphasis on delivering new features. And because our product was launched in December of 2019, it's the most modern code base, which allows us to innovate and iterate faster than just about anybody else. And so we have a public product roadmap, and you can see on a however frequently as you want the progress around us delivering new innovations, things like spatial commerce and rule and flow builder and immersive elements and digital sales rooms are all things that really nobody else has that we're able to crank out really, really quickly. So that's kind of what I mean by that, Ethan, around e-com platforms or outsourcing innovation.
Yeah, and we can get into some of those. Let's talk about like some of those cool features in a few. Let's get through your kind of, get through the bullets here, and we can kind of get into the next piece. And so your last is about kind of the big lie around consumerization of B2B. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in e-commerce for 25 years, and I can vividly remember about a dozen years where everybody said, well, next year is going to be the big year for B2B. And it makes sense, right? It's 10x or more the size of the B2C market. And everybody's trying to unlock what the next big growth pillar is going to be. And inevitably, everybody talks about B2B. But what they're really talking about is big software platforms are trying to figure out how to make merchants create a consumer-like B2B experience. And what does that mean? It means self-service. It means, long tail. It means putting our products online and standardize the pricing. But inevitably, that consumerization of B2B is never really going to unlock the full potential of B2B commerce. The only way, I like to call it the easy 10. You can get an easy 10%, easy in parentheses, unlock of B2B commerce opportunity through consumerization, meaning putting up a website, self-serving the long tail, some of the renewals, et cetera. But where you really get the unlock is in the hard 90. And the hard 90% of the revenue in B2B commerce is actually locked into the sales reps, the ones who own the relationships and they sell with a Coke and a joke, and finding a way to use digital commerce to unlock that is the real B2B opportunity. And that's what we're focused on Shopware. And I know you've seen it, Ethan, but we have this digital sales room product, which is outrageously cool. It does to e-commerce what telehealth has done to healthcare. It is a tool that the reps can use, not are mandated to use. And the ones who use it make more money and serve the long tail underserved base of their customers better. And that's the real unlock and why the big consumerization of B2B is a lie.
Yeah, I think, and I find that very interesting, right? Like the concept of the digital sales room where a rep can basically get on video and highlight certain products and take their catalog and kind of whittle that down into a handful of products that you want to get in front of, your prospect or your customer, like in a much more intimate way. I guess I shouldn't say like words like intimate with in a business setting where no Diddy freak off around here, but we want it like it's like how do you like get into Coke and a joke, and how do you make that connection like when you're remote, right? How do you drive people and lead them to the right set of things that they should be ordering? And I think it's super intriguing. And just curious to watch the evolution of that, especially if you've got a sales team of 50 people or 75 people or 300 sales reps, right? Like, can you imagine just the type of activity that, like, if you can get some adoption within your enterprise to use this, right? Because it always starts with a couple of people that figure out how to do it first, right? There's always a couple of reps that are the most kind of technically, kind of technical marketer, as I like to call them, that get in and kind of figure out how to leverage it. And once they can figure out how to do it and teach other people, it can just spread like wildfire throughout the enterprise.
100% agree. And I think you're making the really important point around change management. B2B is probably the most, I'm hesitant to say stuck in their ways, but really knows how to operate. They know their customers. They know what they bought in the past. They know all of the nuanced details of a relationship. And trying to force a mandate of use this tech across that is just unreasonable. But what is reasonable is you find a few people who are willing to innovate and basically let them prove that they make more money, and everybody will follow. So
Yeah.
I don't think a mandate is ever going to change the way that people do B2B commerce, but I do think the big profit motive of people making more money will. And so that's got to be the goal.
Well, I think one of the big misnomers of B2B commerce and manufacturing and things is when I talk to those organizations, they know their products and they know how to sell those products, right? Like you and I, we live and breathe commerce every day. Like we know like everything that's going on in our industry. And at times I think we actually are too like self-serving with it. And it's like, I've gone to some other industries trade shows, and it's just a completely different vibe than where commerce trade shows currently are, like admittedly. And so, these folks know their products, they know how to sell them, but they're just unaware of what opportunities are out there, in terms of how to take it to the next level, right? How to take it to the next level with self-service, how to take it to the next level with assisted shopping, right? How to take it to the next level in terms of quoting and mobile, right? They just don't, people don't want to buy, in a 9-to-5 environment anymore. They want to be able to buy, at 11 o'clock at night if they so desire, especially if they're maybe a smaller organization and the CEO is, if they're a 50-person company, like those types of things still happen. So they need to be educated. They need to be brought up to speed. They need to see what opportunities are out there. And instead of mandating, hey, you're going to use this, like my way or the highway, it's like, hey, let me show you this. You take 3 or 4 or 5 people that are like kind of hip to new stuff. And there's always somebody. There's always some kid in the corner that the old timers, are telling he's crazy. But it's like you want to take that person, hey, let me show you something. Have you ever thought about, trying to sell this way? And they're like, oh, I had a dream. I wish I could sell over video online and walk people right through the products, right? And then next thing you know, like it's, it's infectious. So,
Totally.
I think it's a great opportunity, for folks, for manufacturers to look at things like this and say, hey, how am I going to evolve? How am I going to evolve forward, like into the next century?
100% agree. Yeah. And there's a bunch of inside salespeople that have a really tough job at these manufacturers in this B2B context, trying to educate and inspire people on products that they can't touch and feel. And so how do we create, and they aren't traveling, right? So how do you create a mechanism for them to build a relationship, for them to romance the right products, not the phone book of products that they have, but the really narrow set of products that are perfect for the customer they're talking to. So there's a lot of inefficiency in the way B2B commerce is done, and it's mostly kind of locked up in a small number of relationships. So the digital sales room in this regard kind of helps bridge that gap. It's not the overall solution. It is a part of how that transition happens.
Yeah. So what's next for Shopware? Where are you going next? What's on the product roadmap for 2025? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, well, we love innovation. We love trying to come up with new stuff, and we love doing it with partners and clients. So we really embrace market feedback. And what the market has been telling us is that while the most of the hardware devices for spatial commerce have really kind of failed to meet kind of market penetration rates, everybody still believes that kind of the flat world of e-commerce, where you see black boxes of 75 cameras that all look almost exactly the same, but in the description it's slightly different, like that world needs to evolve. And so we're big into this spatial commerce concept. We're big into immersive elements. We're big into really imagining how you can buy products in a more interactive way. And we just won a merchant called Up a Baby, who's a really world-class brand who differentiates on experience. And one of the things they said as part of the pursuit was they believe in this concept of word of mom. Do great work, build great products, create great experiences with the product, and word of mom will basically spread like wildfire. And so these ability to almost touch and feel a product virtually is where we are going. Whether that's in a B2B use case or even a B2C one, we just think that the way that you kind of romance and feel and experience the products need to get a lot better. And we're kind of living in, maybe it's 2.0 of the internet, but we think 3.0 will be much more interesting place to do commerce. So that's one
Yeah.
example. We also have the most AI features built into our core product. I think there's 17 core functions. Our goal on AI is to basically take the blue collar work that's done by white collar workers in e-commerce and try to give them more efficiency. I've never met an e-commerce marketing manager or e-commerce owner who's been able to kind of get at their long list of things to go
Right.
do. And so we make it a lot easier to add products, to merchandise those products, to modify images of those products, to do all of the blue collar work in e-commerce, to really automate a lot of that with AI. And we're lucky enough to be a sister company to OpenAI because our investor, the Carlyle Group, is the largest investor in both companies. And so we get a front row seat as to what's happening with OpenAI. And our leadership teams have met in San Francisco and gone deep on how e-commerce and AI are connected. So I'm not going to be the guy that's going to promise the moon with AI. We're taking a very German practical
Yeah.
mindset that AI needs to make the people who run e-commerce incredibly more efficient and more effective. That's kind of our first mission.
I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it. So I like to ask every guest on the show, what's one tip that you would give to a brand or merchant on how to grow?
Yeah, such a big question. For me, I think the obvious pillars everybody's already doing. The first one is obviously grow international, and instead of opening up a whole bunch of entities in the long tail markets, you should use a merchant of record provider. That's a global E, that's an eShop world. I think that's kind of play number one. Play number two is probably related to create a, what's the word I'm looking for? An experience that is curated for your customers, as opposed to one that is, generic. A long time ago, I signed up for this trunk club, which I thought was really cool. They know my size, they know my style in theory, and they send me stuff, and I keep what I want, and I send the rest back. And there's this element of this curation that I felt kind of personally connected to. And I think the next iteration of commerce, and when you try to figure out how you grow, is you get to that model where it is curated for me. So it's not general e-commerce with 10,000 SKUs. It's commerce for Jason, and there's 50. And there might be 50 additional that might make sense for you. But if you think about the world where a lot of people are buying from Instagram ads or TikTok ads or Facebook ads, what they're really trying to do with that effective targeting is exactly that. It's commerce. It's trying to get, based on all the profile data they know, they're trying to curate content for you that you're likely to buy. This shirt is one of those for me. And so coupled with our concept of digital sales room, you can apply this as a curated shopping experience that is hosted with an advocate from the brand. It's things like that where we have to reimagine what commerce should be like online. And frankly, it's going to take a lot of some of the best practices of why people buy in stores. It's this concept of the entertainment value of shopping. And I think to really unlock growth, you kind of got to scratch that itch around the entertainment value of shopping and this concept of curation. So go global. Once you've done that, try to figure out how you focus on your biggest market and you create differentiation through experience. That's my answer.
That's great. Thank you so much for those thoughts on that. Just want to take a second to give a shout out to all of our listeners. For those of you listening on audio only, I just want to let you know that we are a video first podcast. So you get to see two very, kind of two of the sexiest men, I think, in commerce, see our faces. If you head on over to our YouTube page, we're, they say that we're like the Clooney and Pitt of commerce,
Well, you're the Joe Rogan of Ecom Pod, so I'm just happy to be on the pod.
But if this is a video first podcast, so head on over to our YouTube page at Groove Commerce. Please give us a like, leave a comment, subscribe. We love to get feedback on what we're doing. And if you think you'd be a good guest, don't hesitate to hit me up on one of the socials or through our website. Jason, I want to just thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule and joining us today. Very, very insightful thoughts. I wish you much success in the U.S. as you continue to really, really like boogie along. And so, we cross paths pretty often on the conference circuit. So it's great to spend 45 minutes here today and talk all things shopware. So really appreciate it.
Well, let me reciprocate. So we love Groove. Ethan, you got a really special company doing really special things, and we couldn't be more excited to be partnering with you. So thank you, and definitely looking forward to seeing you on the circuit.
All right, awesome. Thank you, everybody.